that it's working. I'll just remind everyone to mute themselves as you're waiting.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry, I just had a trustee that's not on mute.
An anonymous participant has left.
Okay, it'll just be a moment before we get started. Okay, welcome everyone to our February the 8th meeting. This is Dawn Danko as chair. I'd like to start with our land acknowledgement. The Hamilton-Wentworth District School Board acknowledges our presence on ancestral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee Confederacy land as determined by the Dish with One Spoon Treaty. The intent of this agreement is for all nations sharing this territory to do so responsibly, respectfully, and sustainably in perpetuity. We respect the long-standing relationships with the local indigenous communities, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and the Six Nations of the Grand River. At this time, we will play O Canada. Thank you, everyone. At this time, I'll start with the meeting roll call. We have Trustee Officer Miller and Acting Director Zucker present at the Ed Center, but while we're at our stay-at-home orders, we have trustees participating by phone. I'm going to go through the roll call, noting that I received regrets from Trustees Archer and Tutt. If they've been able to join in, they can certainly let me know, and I will just mention their name to make sure. So starting with Trustee Archer, are you present? Trustee Bingham?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Buck?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Dees?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Galindo?
I'm present.
Thank you. Trustee Johnstone?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Miller?
Present. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Mulholland?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Pekin-Miller?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. And just checking, Trustee Tutt? Okay, noting I did receive regrets for Trustees Archer and Tutt. Student Trustee Hessler.
Present.
Thank you. Student Trustee Zakar.
Present.
Thank you. And Sago-Wanagarla.Segi. Let's check one more time. Sago-Wanagarla.Segi. Are you present? Okay, thank you. I would like to just remind everyone of our meeting norms since we are still meeting remotely. Please make sure you're on mute unless you're called on to speak to help with our audio quality. Please make sure you direct all comments or questions through the chair so I can direct them to the appropriate person. For any report with an action item, I will go through a roll call to see if there are questions. If there's a monitoring report, I will open the floor to questions, and you can unmute yourself to signal that you'd like to speak. I will create a speakers list. To move an item, I will select a mover and seconder as needed. If you are not okay with moving or seconding an item, please unmute yourself and state this. For voting, I will go to a negative vote and only ask who is opposed. If you are opposed to a motion, please ensure you unmute yourself and state this. And as we engage in respectful debate and dialogue, I acknowledge that we all have different perspectives and experiences, along with additional challenges when we can't see each other in person. So I would like to remind everyone that all trustees have the right and the responsibility to participate in an open and respectful debate of issues. Please note that in addition to myself as the chair, each trustee has the opportunity to raise a point of order in response to any statement or action that you perceive to be inappropriate as per our code of conduct and equity policy. And you can interrupt someone to raise a point of order. At this time, we will move along to item number 4, approval of the agenda. So I will just add Trustee Bingham as the mover and Trustee Buck as the seconder. Are there any questions or comments or amendments?
Madam Chair.
Trustee Galindo, and then I believe I heard Trustee Miller. Trustee Galindo?
I'll let Trustee Miller go first, if that's okay.
Okay, Trustee Miller?
No, I'm sorry. I believe Trustee Galindo has to go first in this case.
Okay.
Trustee Galindo?
Madam Chair, yes, I'd like to propose an amendment to the agenda, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
I'd like to move to reconsider a motion discussed during last week's Committee of the Whole, dated February 2nd, 2021. A discussion that took place.
Sorry, Trustee Galindo, you're asking to add a reconsideration motion to the agenda?
That's correct.
Okay. Sorry, if you could continue and just clarify what that's for.
I'd like to reconsider how I voted.
Okay,
and
so you're asking...
much of the discussion would have to take place in camera.
Okay, so just to clarify, you're asking to put reconsideration of a motion from last week on, what was the date? February the 2nd? Yes, February the 2nd. Are you asking to put the entire motion up for reconsideration on the agenda?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So to do that, we would need you've moved that. We would need to, for reconsideration, actually, first, we'd need to waive our rules. To put a reconsideration on an agenda, it does require notice as per our rules of order in our trustee handbook. So first we would need, and I can put this out there, a motion to waive the rules to put this on to our agenda. So I'll ask if the trustee would move a motion to waive the rules.
So I'll move that motion.
Alex Johnstone.
Okay.
Alex Johnstone, I'm willing to put that motion out.
Okay, so Trustee Galindo, seconded by Trustee Johnstone. That's a motion to waive the rules, and so trustees are clear. That would be required if we wanted to put a reconsideration of a previous decision by the board on our agenda as new business without any notice of motion from trustees. So this would be a majority vote. If we could maybe, I think we'll just, I'm not sure if this is a debatable motion. Give me 1 second. would like to confirm that to make sure that we're doing things
It's
correctly.
not debatable.
It's not debatable, and it's a 2/3 majority vote to waive the rules. So at this time, I will just go through the roll call to see if anyone is opposed. Sorry, I'll start at the top of the list. Trustee Bingham?
I'm not even quite sure. What are we voting on?
Okay,
sorry,
let me just give
here.
everybody a minute to understand what's happening, and I'll just go through that again. So, Trustee Galindo has requested that we put a reconsideration onto our agenda for tonight. That is not currently on the agenda. To put a reconsideration on the agenda requires notice for trustees. So that would be where someone could submit a notice of motion for a future meeting. If we would like to put this on the agenda for tonight, in order to do that, we would need to waive the rules. Trustees can waive the rules. It is not a debatable motion. It's something trustees just have to vote on without debating, and it requires a 2/3 majority vote. I'll actually just see, are there any questions about that? It's not debating anything, but are there any questions?
I have a question. It's Trustee Dees.
Thank you. Trustee Dees, go ahead.
If this is not approved to waive the rules, so this means then that the motion would have to come to a later meeting. Is that correct?
That would be correct. Or it could come to a later meeting if notice was provided.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, could I offer clarification?
Certainly, go ahead.
So just to clarify, my preamble would be that we reconsider the motion.
Trustee Galindo, you can't speak to the reconsideration. We're just looking to get it on the floor, and then you can speak to it when it would be the appropriate time. So at this time, I'm just looking, I'll be going to a vote for whether or not we waive the rules, and I appreciate that it would be nice to be able to speak to it, but first we do have to waive the rules to do that. Is that okay?
Sure. I was just going to restate what I said just now.
Okay. And Trustee Galindo, I maybe can restate that I heard that he wanted to reconsider how he voted at our meeting last week, and so putting that on the floor for reconsideration. Okay, at this time, what I'll do is, in terms of waiving the rules, I think it's preferable to go to a negative vote to see who is opposed, as opposed to going through the roll call, so that you don't necessarily have to go first or last. So if trustees are opposed to waiving the rules, can you please unmute yourself and indicate that?
I'm opposed.
Okay. Trustee Paikin-Miller is opposed.
Trustee Mulholland.
Trustee Mulholland, thank you. Okay, so we have two trustees opposed. Let me just... waiving the rule. So we're just going to make sure we're on mute, please. And Trustee Officer Miller, I believe if two trustees are opposed, we have 10 trustees present. Then that should be a 2/3 majority, correct?
That's correct. I thought we had regrets from 2.
Yes, we do. Oh, so we have 9. That's
right.
7 of 9. So by your calculation, that's fine. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So Trustee Galindo, then you can just state again your request to put the reconsideration on the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So on the motion from February 2nd, 2021, from the Rise and Report, I'd like to change how I voted, and on top of that, discuss the particulars of a specific motion that was discussed in camera.
Okay, so Trustee Galindo, I just want to clarify that you can't change how you voted, so are you seeking a reconsideration for that motion from the entire board?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming I need a seconder to get that on the agenda. Do I have a seconder?
I will second that, please, Trustee Miller.
Okay. Trustee Miller, thank you. And so then again, give me 1 second. I just want to confer with the trustee officer. I just want to confirm if this is debatable, Trustee Officer Miller. Okay, so to amend the agenda, yes, it's debatable, so I've got a mover and seconder. Trustee Galindo is the mover. You can speak to your motion to add this item to the agenda first. And we'll just remember to respect the 5-minute rule. I will interrupt at 5 minutes if you are going over.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'd like to propose an amendment to we're discussing the amendment to the agenda, that I move to reconsider a motion discussed during last week's Committee of the Whole, dated February 2nd, 2021, specifically the decision to seek no further sanctions for trustees identified in the final report of investigation of allegations of potential breaches of the Code of Conduct, whereas the third-party investigation conducted by Arlene Higgins of
Sorry, Trustee Galindo, I need to interrupt. This isn't a time to put a motion on the floor. This is just to speak to putting it on the agenda. So if you can just restrict your comments to why you would like to have this on the agenda, that would be great. Thank you.
Bear with me here, Madam Chair, as I reorganize my argument for why I'm bringing this full motion to the floor. I do want to highlight the fact that the third-party investigation was not a formal Code of Conduct investigation, but rather an investigation into alleged breaches of the Code of Conduct, and therefore I'm looking to have a discussion that considers the motion that we've discussed, not to seek further sanctions on the matter. That's the motion that I'd like to reconsider.
Thank you. Trustee Miller, and I'm just, again, going to remind people that we're not speaking to the motion to reconsider. We're just speaking to the motion to put this on the agenda, and we should always be mindful that we don't directly or indirectly state anything that is related to private session. Not that anyone has, just putting that out there for everybody. So, Trustee Miller, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Danko. I am in full support of adding this to tonight's agenda. I respect that I know typically trustees very much value the time to review a notice of motion laid out. However, given what I feel is an extremely important dedication to transparency as public servants, and in order to maintain the boundaries of our own trustee governance and our own trustee code of conduct, I believe that a reconsideration motion is very important, and it's important to address this situation in a timely manner. I know that this is a very difficult conversation and matter, and I believe that there is space here at this table to discuss it and reconsider and to highlight the rules laid out by our governance structure, but also the responsibilities laid out by that governance structure. So thank you very much, through the Chair.
Thank you. So at this time, I just will go through the roll call list to see if anyone has.
Madam Chair, Trustee Johnstone, just a point of order. I need to declare a conflict of interest on this, as I did at our last meeting. So I'm going to get off the phone, and when this item is over, if you could please text me and I'll call back in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Johnstone. For approval or for the agenda,
Alex Johnstone.
Left.
Typically, we don't have conflicts of interest for approval of the agenda, but if trustees did want to declare a conflict of interest, please just state so now.
Chair Danko, I would like to also declare a conflict of interest here.
Okay, so Trustee Buck. Okay, we will make sure that we call you back in
Left.
as soon as we are ready. Is there any other conflicts of interest on this item that someone would like to declare? Hearing none, I will go through the roll call. People can speak to the motion. Certainly, you could ask questions for clarification. I can answer if possible. I'll start at the top of the list. Trustee Bingham?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Deese?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Mulholland?
No questions. But should this be moved into private discussion?
This is just to put a reconsideration on the agenda. If we,
I agree with that. But if it passes, will we move directly into private and discuss it now?
That's a good question.
Yeah, my problem is that, in fairness, if I may, Madam Chair, in fairness to the board, I feel that this should have been a notice of motion, so should have been on next meeting so trustees can be prepared. But anyway, continue on. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Paikin-Miller?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Student Trustee Hessler?
No questions regarding it being added to the agenda. Just one comment. I would really hate for any bureaucratic rules to really stop this from going forward, just because I think equity should be first priority. So with that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Student Trustee Zakar?
No questions.
Thank you. I'll just add myself to the speakers list. I do want to point out that when we look at rules of order are meant to allow for deliberation and debate that are in order to allow to place all membership on the same footing so that everyone's speaking the same language. And I understand that people have different levels of comfort with that, but as chair, I will just reiterate that it is my responsibility to facilitate meetings in a fair way that follows the rules of order. And so I want to acknowledge as we go through this meeting that if at any point someone would like to challenge the chair or appeal a ruling of the chair, you have the right to do so, and that would be a majority vote of trustees. That's not something we commonly do, and it would be calling my role into question, and that would be fine, but I'll just make sure that I state that. I do agree with another trustee that this should have been a notice of motion. At a minimum, we should have received this before the meeting started. That would be respectful of trustees, but I do believe that I welcome having it come to the floor so that we can have additional dialogue as necessary, and we would consider the reconsideration. Having said that, I do have a question for Trustee Officer Miller or for our Acting Director or Secretary of the Board. Where would this be placed on the agenda if it goes ahead?
Through the chair, it's really up to you to make a suggestion as to where to place it on the agenda. You could get through the board business and put it before the committee of the whole report. Either way, we will. If we move into private session, we will have to pause the stream so that we can do that, and then come back out and start the stream up again.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. So I would suggest that between items 10 and 11 would be appropriate before the committee of the whole report comes up in this agenda. And at this time, I will go to a negative vote. Are any trustees opposed to putting the topic of reconsideration of last week's motion on the agenda?
I'm opposed.
Okay, Trustee Pagan-Miller.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and again, just a reminder to be on mute unless you are indicating that you're opposed. Okay, hearing no others, that does pass, so that will be between items 10 and 11 on the agenda. At this time, pardon me while I scroll, I will look for conflicts of interest and ask Trustee Officer Miller to actually call back in Trustees Johnstone and Buck. And if we can pause for a moment for them to come back in. Okay, so we are calling back in Trustees Johnstone and Buck. I do want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to declare a conflict of interest, so I'm just going to wait a moment, knowing that they were present at the beginning of the meeting. I do recognize that we have a quorum. And okay, just going to confirm we had either Trustee Buck or Trustee Johnstone join back in.
Dawn, this is Trustee Buck. I'm back in.
Thank you. So we're just waiting for Trustee Johnstone.
Alex Johnstone joined.
There we go. Thank you. So Trustee Johnstone, you're back in the meeting. So the agenda has been amended to include a reconsideration of the vote, in particular the consideration for sanctions from last week, and that will be happening before our report from the Committee of the Whole, item number 11. I'm at the point where we're at item 5, declarations of conflict of interest. So I didn't receive any advance of the meeting. Does anyone wish to declare a conflict of interest?
Madam Chair, Trustee Johnstone?
Mm-hmm.
For the new added item, I will be declaring a conflict of interest, and will be whenever we get to that point on the agenda, if you could just let us know. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will also, this is Trustee Buck, I will also declare a conflict of interest on that item.
Thank you, Trustee Buck. Okay, so at this time, I don't hear any other conflicts of interest. We're moving on to item 6, which is confirmation of the minutes from January 25th, 27th, and 28th from 2021. Are there any corrections?
Madam Chair, this is Trustee Galindo. I have a correction for the minutes on the agenda item for January 25th.
Oh, go ahead.
Item 13, the motion for item 13 is incorrect. The motion listed in the minutes is the original draft of the motion, but not the motion that was actually passed that night. So I am sending a copy of the motion that was passed that night to Trustee Officer Miller, CCing you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, we'll move to item number 7, reports from trustee special committees. Our governance report from January the 18th, 2021. Trustee Galindo, can you bring forward the report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just bear with me here while I pull it up. All right, so we're looking at the Governance Committee report for the meeting that took place on January 18th, 2021. There are 2 monitoring items. First, strategic directions update. The following update was granted to Governance Committee in September 2020 regarding strategic directions being reviewed in January 2021. Staff at the time are recommending that the strategic directions currently in place be maintained and that a review be considered during the 2021-22 school year for launch in September 2022. Now, the proposed timeline would be fall 2021. Governance Committee receives a report from staff regarding timelines for consultation and methodology. For winter 2022, consultation would take place with the changes if applicable, and additional feedback is reviewed and considered at that time. Following that spring 2022, Governance Committee receives the report from staff following that consultation process and will make recommendations to the Board of Trustees on the final strategic directions, which, if approved, would be implemented in September 2022. That is monitoring item number A. Now, item B, Trustee Annual Plan and Self-Assessment Discussion. Chair Danko noted for the committee that as a board, trustees are responsible for creating a trustee annual plan and self-assessment. She noted that there are 5 components to the trustee annual plan. First, a strategic direction report, which the reports are discussed at trustee special committees. Second, trustee professional development. Third, stakeholder communications annual plan. Fourth, political advocacy annual plan. And fifth, self-review of effective governance practices. Chair Danko is collecting feedback from trustees on these areas and will return to Governance Committee in March with a framework for further discussion and review. I am presenting that on behalf of the Chair of the Committee, Trustee Tutt. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Galindo. Sorry, I've got to flip between my documents as well. And so I'll have, if it's okay, Trustee Johnstone second the report. These are monitoring items, so that would be a motion to receive the report. And I will go to see if there are any questions or comments on the report. As it's a monitoring item, I'll just go through the roll call since it's a trustee report. Starting in reverse order with our student trustees. Student Trustee Zakar. Sorry, Student Trustee Zakar, do you have any questions about the report?
Sorry, no questions or comments.
Thank you. Student Trustee Hessler. Sorry, Student Trustee Hessler.
No comments nor questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Pekin-Miller.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Mulholland.
No questions.
Thank you. Trustee Miller.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Johnstone.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Dees.
I just have one question.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, has an HWDSB Board of Trustees ever created a trustee annual plan and self-assessment? Are we aware of one ever being created?
I can answer that from my perspective, Trustee Dees, and I can also turn to the trustee officer. Certainly, in terms of an annual plan, we've had annual work plans. That is the committee work that trustees do, and we've had annual PD plans. But to my knowledge, we have not had an opportunity to do self-reflection or self-assessment on our effectiveness as a board. Trustee Officer Miller, did you want to add anything to that?
Through the chair, not at this time.
Thank you. Trustee Dees?
So thank you. So I'm glad to see this come forward. I think it's long overdue, so it's great to see it. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Buck?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Bingham?
Yeah, just one. As you want to bring it back, Chair Danko, want to bring it back to the Governance Committee in March with a framework, what date would you like the absolute last, like the most feedback by that you can actually put together a framework?
That is a great question, Trustee Bingham. Sooner rather than later would be great, but any time leading up to that date, as long as it's the week before, that would be acceptable to me.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, to the motion to receive the governance report from January the 18th. Is anyone opposed? Hearing none, that passes. Moving along to item number 8, our Human Resources Committee report from January 19th, 2021. Trustee Dees, can you bring the report forward, please?
I will. Thank you, and through the chair. So there were 3 information items. The first one was in regards to the equity audit. And the Equity Network of Dundas wrote to the board on November 9th asking the board to expand its scope of its employment equity audit to review not just hiring practices, but further review how Black, Indigenous, and people of color education students and graduates interact with HWDSB schools. I think this is an important conversation. Staff reviewed the letter at the meeting and discussed next steps. The director has met back in December, on December 4th, and reviewed our employment equity action plan and our commitments. And if you remember, there were approximately 70 recommendations on the employment equity action plan, and an action plan had been created, so that will take course over the next 18 months. So in alignment with this, staff will reach out to meet with the faculties of education this spring to further share our recent staff census and our employment equity action plan, and welcome representatives from END, which is the Equity Network of Dundas, to join us at these meetings. Item 2 is B is violence in the workplace. The employee incident and reporting, it was an update. So staff provided the committee with a 4-month update on employment incident and reporting statistics, with broken down into 4 major categories: first aid, healthcare, lost time, and no injury. So during the first 4 months, which is of 2021, a portion of students participated in remote learning, as we know, due to COVID, rather than in class, which contribute to a potential decrease in total violent incidents reported to the board. So the board has transitioned to the behavior management system from nonviolent crisis intervention, and a CYCP has been hired that will focus on violence prevention and works directly with schools. Item C is the absence management strategic plan and employee attendance update. And again, an update on employee attendance for the period of September 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. The average permanent employee was absent 5.23 days, so which is an increase of 0.57 days overall for combined personal illness days and COVID-19 related absences as compared to the same period in 2019. And our staff, our employees, support and wellness support will continue to support all staff with return to work planning and accommodations, and of course working in these challenging COVID-19 and understanding the impact that will have on this. And with that, I'd like to move the report.
Thank you, Trustee Dees. I'll assign the Trustee Johnstone as the seconder, and I'll go through the list just to see if there are any questions. This is a monitoring report, or the report for information, so this would be to move to receive the report. I'll start, let's see, at the beginning this time. Trustee Bingham, any questions or comments? Trustee Bingham? Trustee Bingham.
Sorry, I keep dropping on this. Sorry. No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Buck?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Galindo?
I have no questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Johnstone?
No questions. Thank you.
Trustee Miller?
No questions. Thank you for the report.
Thank you. Trustee Mulholland?
No questions.
Thank you. Trustee Paikin-Miller?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Student Trustee Hessler?
No comments and no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Student Trustee Zakar?
No questions.
Thank you. So at this time, I'll ask if anyone is opposed to receiving the Human Rights and Equity report.
Human Resources report.
Pardon me?
Oh, sorry. It's the Human Resources report.
Oh, sorry. Where am I? Sorry, Human Resources. Yes, that's the next one. Thank you for clarifying. Is anyone opposed to receiving the Human Resources report? Hearing none. Okay, moving to the next item is reports from community advisory committees, and I was jumping ahead. Item number 9 is our Human Rights and Equity report, or from our advisory committee from January 14th, 2021. Trustee Miller, would you like to bring the report forward?
Thank you. And through the chair, the Human Rights and Equity Community Advisory Committee met on January 14th of this year from 4 to 6 p.m. There was one main topic of discussion. It was agreed unanimously at the December meeting that this meeting would be dedicated to discussing the upcoming HWDSB student census and identity-based data project. The consultation was facilitated by Dr. Siobhan Niles, who is an external consultant acquired to conduct consultation sessions on the student census project. Staff and trustee representatives attended the part of the meeting where the information was shared. However, we did leave just to make sure that the advisory committee could speak freely and comfortably. And the committee then went on to discuss what the student census would be, why it was being done, what the integrity principles would be around the collection of data, and then there were a few minor staff member and trustee updates. And with that, I would like to move the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Miller. I'll add Trustee Johnstone as a seconder. Are there any questions for this report? I'll ask trustees to just unmute yourself if you would like to add yourself to the speakers list with a question or comment. That includes student trustees. Hearing none, is anyone opposed to receiving the report? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 10, Rural Schools Advisory Committee from January 21st, 2021. I believe Trustee Johnstone, are you able to bring forward that report?
Yes, I am. Through the chair, bringing forward the report from January 21st. Trustees will see 2 action items. So first was the election of the committee chair. Amanda Freeman was nominated to serve again as the Rural Schools Advisory Committee chair for the 2020-2021 school year. Also, item B, Greensville Elementary School. So staff explained to the committee that new schools can be submitted to the ministry for funding. Since Spencer Valley has closed, the funding for that school will no longer be received next school year. It is recommended that the board submit to the ministry a proposal for consideration that Greensville be added to the rural school and northern education list. So it was on the motion of the Rural Schools Advisory Committee. It is recommended that the board submit a request to the Ministry of Education to classify Greensville Elementary as a rural school and to be included as part of the Rural Schools Northern Community Fund. Trustees will also see a number of information items below. I won't read the full report in detail, but I'll highlight high level. We did receive an update from facilities on accommodations, water, and transportation and facilities. Trustees will note, especially if you've been attending finance and facilities meetings, that the information is similar to some of our past reports that we've received through F&F. There was an update on water. I'll just note that at Greensville, that opened in January 2021, has one of the new and more complex drinking water systems, and drinking water fixtures are currently bagged and tagged out of service at the site, and bottled water is available for students and staff until they complete all of the required drinking water system testing. And testing was completed the week of January 11th. But they're still waiting for the results to come in. And I think that would be, in terms of the rural school funding, I'll just highlight there that HWDSB received just over $43,000 for rural education, and it will now be publicly reported how the funding is used. And you can see a bit more of the breakdown there below in the report. I think so. With regards to the remainder of the items, they are information, and trustees can certainly read the details there, but that is the high-level report. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Johnstone. So we'll note that there is an action item for trustees here with respect to requesting that the ministry classify Greensville Elementary as a rural school. So we do have Trustee Johnson moving to approve the report. I'll add Trustee Deeth as a seconder. Are there any questions? And given there is an action item, I'll just go through the roll call quickly, starting in reverse with our student trustees. Student Trustee Zakar, any questions or comments?
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Student Trustee Hessler?
Yes. Thank you, and through the chair. Before I start, I just want to clarify that these questions are directed towards the report, not the action item.
Go ahead.
Oh, perfect. So highlighting Trustee Johnstone's mention of Greensville, she noted that since there wasn't a polished water system there, that the school was using primarily bottled water. I would just like kind of from an environmental kind of standpoint, what the kind of recycling program is at that school, just because I could see it producing a lot of waste, which would be harmful to the environment, and I would just like some peace of mind in the recycling program at that school, that is that kind of impact is limited.
Thank you. I'll turn to our acting director, Zucker. Are you able to respond to that, or is there a staff on the line that could?
Thank you, and through the chair, I will ask Superintendent McPherson to discuss the recycling program there, recognizing that through this COVID time, we have paused on our recycling programs in order to be able to address other enhanced cleaning needs in the schools. But I'll turn to Superintendent McPherson to see if there's anything further that she'd like to add.
Thank you, and through the chair, the bottled water program that is taking place at Greensville right now is a short-term measure as we await approval and the testing to be completed. To my understanding, and I would need to follow up on this, to my understanding, the bottled water, we're not talking about individual student bottles, but large bottles that are available for student use that they can use with their own water bottles to fill them.
Thank you. Student Trustee Hessler, any follow-up?
Oh, perfect. That answered my question. Thank you, and no follow-up.
Thank you. Trustee Paikin-Miller?
No questions, thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Mulholland?
No questions.
Thank you. Trustee Miller?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Galindo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question for staff, if that's okay, on the recommendation from the committee to classify the school as rural, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Are there any risks or disadvantages that staff may be concerned about if we request that the ministry reconsider that classification? And on top of that, if approved by the ministry, are there any operational changes that might take place to our day-to-day? Or I'm just trying to understand if there's any risks.
Thank you. I'll go to our Director-Designate, Zucker.
Thank you, and through the chair, no, there would not be any risks. We right now have Spencer Valley receiving the funding related to this classification, so we would just be asking them to transfer it. So there would be no risks, and there would be no additional cost to the ministry, actually, because this would just be transferring that funding over.
Thank you. Trustee Galindo?
No, that answers my question perfectly. Thanks so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Deese?
Yeah, through the chair, I just have a question actually to the report and not the action item. I don't see Flamborough Centre represented here. Is it not considered a rural school?
Director-Designate Zucker?
Thank you. Through the chair, I will pass this to Superintendent McPherson to talk about the membership of the committee.
Thank you, and through the chair, I would have to check my records. However, I do not believe that Flamborough Centre is included as a rural school, but I will take that piece away.
Trustee Deese?
Okay, thank you, because I was under the understanding it was. It does sit on sort of an outside of the watered-down boundary. So yes. So if we can hear back on that, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Buck.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bingham.
Yes, kind of on the same wavelength as the last couple of questions. I recall having a discussion a few years back about the definition of rural schools, between what we knew as rural school and what we call rural school, and what the ministry definition of a rural school was. And I think that's where I'm kind of confused as to why certain schools are on it, why they're not, and why we're asking the government to do something for the northern portion of it. We had two different definitions of rural schools, and I remember that conversation, having that conversation. So, again, why would we be able to approach the ministry with this on the action item? Sorry, on that.
Thank you, Trustee Bingham. Director-Designate Zucker.
Thank you, and through the chair, there are schools that have been designated by the ministry as rural. And again, there are two classifications at the ministry. In fact, we do not have any schools that meet the official designation of rural for the purposes of the GSN rural funding. But we would have a certain number that have been designated by the ministry for the purposes of other grants. Spencer Valley being one of them, because it is the same school population. That's why we would have been asking to transfer that funding over to that same school population. And then if there were other concerns that trustees had, we would be able to take those away.
Thank you. Trustee Bingham?
Okay, yes, that kind of kicked in the memories. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't have any questions. So at this time, is anyone opposed to approving the Rural Schools Advisory Committee report? Hearing none, we'll move to the item that was added to the agenda, which was the reconsideration of the motion from last week. I do want to note that I did double-check our rules, and I believe that I have erred in the side of caution with respect to suspending the rules. As I read our rules, we do require a 2/3 majority of board membership. However, Robert's rules is 2/3 majority of the voting members. So I apologize if that is not quite correct, but at this time, since we do have approval to proceed with the item to go on the floor, I think we should do that. So I will turn to Trustee Galindo. You requested this item be added to the agenda. I will also remind people, because this is related to an item that we did rise and report in public, and there is a public motion that it can be talked about, it is very important that people not refer to in-camera discussions or actions, whether it's by inference or it's directly referring to it. So just please remember that you have a duty as a trustee to protect private information. Trustee Galindo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I might confirm through you with the trustee officer whether it's best to move into an in-camera session at this time, or if there aren't any concerns with that, we can proceed publicly. I just want to confirm with the trustee officer, who is aware of what aspects of the motion can be discussed privately and versus publicly, if that's okay through you, Madam Chair.
Trustee Officer Miller?
Thank you, and through the chair. So the board could go into in-camera to discuss it, but would have to come out of in-camera session in order to vote on it publicly.
And from my so I did hear Trustee Mulholland acknowledge that we may need to go in camera. Technically, if I don't know exactly what you would like us to reconsider. I haven't seen the motion, so if you do have something written, it may be helpful to send to trustees. Given it may be difficult to discuss the motion or whatever you're proposing for reconsideration, if you feel we do need to go into camera to discuss it, we should, in fact, make sure that we finalize the discussion and vote in public, of course. So are you suggesting that you feel we need to go into camera to discuss this item?
Madam Chair, I think what I'll suggest we do then is the motion. I have two motions in front of me. There's one that is redacted to a version that can be mentioned publicly, and then there is an unredacted version that we could discuss privately if trustees wish during the question period of this motion. If it's okay with you, perhaps I can, and when I say redacted, I've consulted with the trustee officer who has advised what can be said publicly versus privately, and that's where this is coming from, Madam Chair.
Point of order?
Sorry, Trustee Pekin-Miller, what's your point of order?
I just feel that the whole thing should be in camera and then come out and vote.
Thank you, Trustee Pekin-Miller. I just want to acknowledge that we do have a public vote that's being reconsidered. Trustee Galindo, can I just check, is there anything related to public that you can state? And then I think we apparently do need to go in camera.
Yes, so there's publicly what we would be reconsidering is my motion to support the report that was accepted of the committee of a whole. And then with that, there's a specific motion that we discussed in camera, and that is the actual motion that I have in front of me. Okay,
I think without knowing what your motion is, I'm going to have to ask that we go into camera. I don't, ideally I would get a seconder, but I have no clarity on what your motion is. So just given that I am concerned that it may be difficult to discuss without sharing in-camera information publicly, I will ask trustees to go to our in-camera session. So if you would like to disconnect at this time and go into our in-camera session, student trustees, you get to take a break, and we will notify you when we're done, and any staff that are joining us, we can notify you when we're ready to come out. This would be a double in-camera. as far as I can tell.
Point of order.
Trustee Johnstone?
So I'm going to declare a conflict of interest at this time, and I'm going to excuse myself from, I guess, both the in-camera portion of this meeting as well as the public portion for this agenda item. So if you could please text me when it's complete. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will note that Trustee Buck had indicated the same. So I will have trustees who are not declaring a conflict to join the in-camera session. Sorry. We will have to pause the live stream.
Can I make a point of order, please?
Yes. Go ahead. Trustee Dees?
So I'm trying to understand this. So the motion made at the beginning when we allowed this to happen was for it to go on the agenda, correct? It was just to be added to the agenda.
Left.
Sorry, I think I missed the end of that. But
sorry,
correct. Go ahead.
So now, all that went at the beginning is all we agreed or voted on was to add an item to the agenda. Is that correct?
That is correct. So at this time, this is not going in camera to reconsider. It's going in camera to consider whether or not we will reconsider based on whatever motion is put on the floor, which we do not yet know. Does that make sense?
Well, like I said, it just seemed that what was approved at the beginning was to add this item to the agenda, not really realizing it was going to go into a discussion in camera, but that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. So at this time, I'll ask trustees to disconnect from this call and to call into the private session. I believe we'll be pausing the live stream until we rejoin public session, and I will hear you shortly in the other session.
Left.
Maria Felix Miller.
Left. 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 The chairperson has disconnected. The conference will now end.